Get it going here.
The floor is yours.
Alrighty. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hyperledger Technical Steering Committee. Everybody is welcome to participate in this meeting so long as you abide by the antitrust policy and also that you are respectful of the other contributors and participants here as prescribed in our Community Code of Conduct. We've got a number of topics today, and I think the largest ones are the project proposals. And so what I'm hoping that we can accomplish today is get the bulk of the discussion, have the bulk of the discussion today, and look to dispositioning those projects at the next meeting after we've all had time to digest that feedback. But to get things going, I think we may have Jessica on the call. I'm actually looking to see if Jessica is
I'm
on.
here.
Oh, wonderful.
Can you hear?
I can hear you. You want to give us the announcement for the marketing committee?
Sure. So, new meeting here. We're kicking off contributor and marketing committee meetings. These will be held the second Wednesday of every month. The kickoff call will be Wednesday, September 11th at 9 a.m. Pacific. I believe there was an invite that was sent out. So the purpose of this call is really to discuss things around Hyperledger projects in the community. So we think this will be a great opportunity for maintainers and contributors to learn how they can get involved in all different aspects of marketing. And we hope that you all can join. Some goals will be obviously to improve the communication between marketing and some technical leaders in the community, and understand better how we can work together and better promote Hyperledger's public presence and marketing messages. So really hope that as many of you can as possible. I will be on the call as well as the marketing committee chair, Dan O'Prey, and Elisa Worley, the vice chair. So I hope to see you dial in.
Great. And will people find that on the community calendar?
I believe so. It's been added to the wiki, and I think an invite went out from Rye to the TSC. So
I only sent that invite to you, and it's on the community calendar. So I did not send the invite to the TSC because I've gotten feedback that I should stop sending invites to mailing lists. So.
All right. Well, there you have it, though. It's up on the
okay.
calendar for anybody who wants to find that and join that new call. I think that's probably particularly important for the maintainers to show up to, since a lot of the discussion is about how your projects are going to be marketed. And this is an opportunity for you to get involved in that.
Correct.
And all right, thank you. And then moving from one maintainer topic to another, we do have the Maintainer Summit scheduled for October of this year. And I think that one of the best ways that we can make sure that we've got good and broad attendance from the projects is if we have some outreach from those of us on the steering committee. And so I thought maybe what we could do for a few minutes here is run down the list of projects and see if we've got somebody from the TSC who can reach out to each of those projects. So I'm going to flip to the project page here. Do we have Nathan on the call?
He's here.
He's here. All right, he might be fumbling for his mute button, but so sort of starting at the top alphabetically with Aries. Nathan,
yes.
Would you be able to reach out to the Aries maintainer community and see if they're able to attend in October?
Absolutely. We've already been promoting it amongst the maintainers on the calls that we have.
Excellent, thank you. Silas, you're the natural choice for Borough, of course.
Yeah, I will reach out to myself and other borough people. We'll try and get someone there. I haven't sorted out travel yet, but yes, we'll look into that.
All right, well, if you have any trouble reaching yourself, let me know.
Will do.
TMI.
Caliper. I don't think that we've got a TSC member who is a Caliper maintainer, but Mark, you work fairly closely with him as the performance and scale chair.
Sure, I will reach out to them.
Thank you. Cello? Awan today?
Yeah, not decided yet, but I think we should have some maintainer to attend the summit.
Great. So whatever you can do, I don't know if you have upcoming meetings with the rest of the cello team, but if you can make sure they're aware, that'd be great. We'd love to have you.
Sure.
We will skip over Composer for now and Explorer. Do we have anybody who represents Explorer here? I think maybe not today, so maybe I can take a note to circle back on that one. Bin, Chris, Arnaud for Fabric. You've got a fairly large maintainer crew there. Do you have a centralized way to, like an upcoming meeting of maintainers that you could discuss this in?
We just had one yesterday, so the next one is, I think, in 2 weeks. What do you, I apologize, I was distracted by somebody. What?
Yeah, there's no problem, Chris. We will make sure the maintainers are aware. We also have, we can use the chat and we'll reinforce it on the next call.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. So all of the maintainers for all.
Hey, Dan, I can also reach out to Explorer.
Thank you. That'd be great. Yeah, so all of the maintainers for all of the projects, assuming they're subscribed to the maintainers list, have received some kind of announcement, but we know that making sure that this is a topic at your maintainer meetings, if you have those, or other verbal or more direct contact, is a good way to make sure that we hear from everybody there. Grid, I think we've got Andy on.
Yep.
I should probably know when the next grid maintainer-ish meeting is, but if you've got if you've got that in mind, then if you could reach out to them, it's obviously well located for a lot of those participants, a lot of those.
Yep. Yeah, I believe a lot of us are planning to show up.
Great. Nathan, likewise on Indy. I know you're already on that. Iroha. Do we have anybody from Iroha? Okay, so I'll make a note to connect with them as well. And I've spoken with David on Quilt recently. I don't think he's on today.
We are on the call, but we are not the TSC members.
So, oh, great.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would very much.
Here. Yeah.
Okay.
We will look into that who to send. So the event is in Minneapolis, right?
That's right, and I didn't put the link on this agenda to the wiki page, but maybe somebody else could drop that into chat or put that on the page for me.
Dan, is there a maximum number of people?
The space, I'm trying to remember if the space allotted for 40 people, and we've got 50 people subscribed to the maintainers list. So I think if we get 100% attendance, we'll be able to get everybody in there. I'm guessing that with the normal obstacles people have, we'll be happy with something more than 50 but less than 100%. All right, where were we? Okay, so Quilt, we've already talked about them. I'm happy to reach out on Sawtooth and Transact. Let's see here, and that leaves Ursa. We talked about this at our bi-weekly meeting yesterday, but Hart, you can help me keep that as a priority at our next meeting.
Definitely. That Dan Middleton guy is always a problem, but I'll do my best.
You just got to shut him up sometimes. All right, well, I think that's all the projects, at least all the ones that we've got listed on the wiki. So flip back to today's agenda. All right, so we've got about 45 minutes left. So I don't know if we have somebody from the proposers of Gardener Up that would like to give a few minutes overview of your proposal we can keep that to something on the order of like 5-10 minutes, that'll still allow for some discussion before we need to move into the next topic.
Yeah, sure. So this is Ekin speaking. I'm one of the members of the Gardener team. And so, yeah, I can give like a high-level overview on what's the background, and then we also have Christoph who can then, introduce, I think, the technical stuffs more. So yeah, Gardener is a blockchain oracle. Was originally our team is from SBO. We develop one of the parts of the business is to develop blockchain software, and kind of the reason why we did Gardener is that we found out that having a oracle that's secure and trustworthy is a problem with multiple blockchain projects, and there weren't really like free and open source implementations available, so we decided to make our own, and yeah, that's why we're here. So yeah, very nice to have a chat with you guys, and yeah, I think maybe Christoph is the right person to do the technical introduction. So I'll let him continue from here.
Okay, hello, it's Christoph here. I'm a developer working on Gardener. So as Ekin already mentioned, Gardener is an blockchain oracle. So basically, software that allows to blockchain applications allows them to access external data. So the business case is that we have a Gardener smart contract deployed somewhere in the blockchain. Currently, we do integrate with Ethereum only, but Gardener is written in a way that allows to integrate different blockchains very easily. So we have a Gardener smart contract deployed somewhere in Ethereum. A user comes into interaction with that smart contract and requests some data to be acquired. Currently, we have two main use cases implemented. First use case is accessing data from an URL data source. So, say we have a smart contract that would like to use the current Bitcoin price, which is exposed via external REST API. In such use case, what user should do? He should call Gardener, and Gardener would transfer that query from blockchain to off-chain part of our application, and that off-chain part would query the REST interface and retrieve data back to the user. That's the first use case. Second use case that we have is generating a random number. Similar story, generating random number on blockchain is quite challenging because in order to provide a seed for a random function, you would need to use something that is also known to the miner. So this is obviously a security vulnerability. So with oracles such as Gardener, that's not the problem because we are doing this off-chain. And to provide security for our solution, we are also leveraging well-known to everyone here, I think, technology called Intel SGX, which is essentially a trusted execution environment. And the idea is that after we leverage all the features that Intel SGX has, users are going to be able to use Gardener with the only third trusted party being Intel, because after we finish our SGX implementation, which is ongoing right now, users won't even have to trust the person, that the entity that hosts the off-chain part of Gardener. I don't know if we have enough time to discuss technicalities of that. I'm happy to answer more questions if there will be. But basically, after we leverage SGX fully, we are going to be resistant to man-in-the-middle attacks, intercepting off-chain part of Gardener, and we are also going to be sending data to our users in an encrypted way. Yeah, I think that's it for a very high level description.
All right, well, thanks for the high level. From the TSC, does anybody have questions that they would like answered from the proposers while we have them on the line here? As well as some people are forming their, oh, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so, and I put in, oh my goodness, I can't remember if I put it in the Gardner or the TCF proposal. One of them mentioned, you know, the potential for overlap or certainly, you know, similar goals with the TCF project proposal. I think is also under consideration. It was submitted, I think, last Friday. And I think it would be worthwhile to, and I know that there has been some initial interaction between the two. I'd like to sort of get a sense from both projects what they think about, you know, whether or not these things are, you know, complementary or somewhat overlapping, and if they are somewhat overlapping, what areas might they consider sort of teasing out and creating sort of maybe a separate sub-project that could be collaborated on jointly before we actually go through and do a consideration of creating new projects. I think it would be worthwhile to at least have that conversation. And it doesn't mean that it has to end up that, you know, there's one project to rule them all or whatever. That's not what I'm necessarily suggesting. I do think, though, that it'd be worthwhile to have that discussion sooner rather than later.
Yeah, yeah, I can answer that maybe. So yeah, we had a call yesterday with Eugene from the TCF project, and yeah, there's a lot of synergies here. So like I can say we don't have all our team here yet, but you know, how it kind of, from how I see is that there's a bit of overlap, or there's overlap definitely in the in the trusted computation and many of the sorry, the SGX technologies. So that's an overlap definitely that we have. So we're open to cooperating. Doesn't really make sense to, you know, replicate work in itself. So far, there's some aspects of Gardner that are also, I guess, out of the scope of the TCF proposal.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure that that's the case. But, you know, I think it'd be worthwhile to sort of have, you know, going in a better understanding about, you know, how, you know, what shape it might take to have, you know, the two projects be more, if you will, cross-integrated than redundant.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we definitely yeah had a discussion with Eugene yesterday about that. We agreed that, you know, we're gonna go like nail the details, let's say next week. But so far, I mean, I think from our side, there's no problem with like doing a cooperation, let's say.
Yeah.
Wherever the overlap is, you know, because I mean, obviously the Inter guys are the right people to do the, let's say, the standard SGX implementations, right? So yeah, for where that overlap is, I think we're definitely more than happy to get some of their knowledge in and use their libraries and stuff, you know.
I have a similar overlap question in terms of Gardner on verifiable credentials. The verifiable credential standard is a mechanism for signing data so that you can know that it came from an authoritative source when you validate it inside of the system. Have you investigated any similarities or overlap with the verifiable credential spec and what you're doing in terms of an Oracle?
No, not really, but from the way that you describe it, certainly that could be an interesting thing to look at.
Nathan, if you wouldn't mind dropping a link into the comments thread for the proposal, that would be good.
This is Silas. I very much agree with what Chris is saying there. In fact, I introduced Ekin to Eugene earlier last week. I think it would make a lot of sense for them to talk. The thing that I like about the Gardner proposal, and if you go and look at the code, +1 for it being written in TypeScript as well, is it's clearly quite a practical implementation that has been extracted from real usage. So from the Burrow project, we'd certainly be interested, given that the contracts they have written for the termination contracts for the Oracle are currently in Solidity. And I think they're going via Ganache to deploy them. It would be very interesting for us if Gardener came in, or even if it didn't, to look at integrating there. So the kind of thing that you can do with this, aside from, so getting a true random Oracle has all sorts of uses for getting actual entropy on the chain. But the other thing that we'd like to do is have a smart contract that can say, I'd like you to go and send an API call and then have it report back. And the system they've built for that looks very practical and would work today. I think the TCF in some ways has a broader scope, particularly with its focus on privacy. And yeah, I think like Chris says, I think there's a possibility here that there could be project merging, but I don't think that should necessarily be the end game, but it would seem a shame to rush ahead too much before you could fully explore those avenues. But I would say that the look of Gardener, to me, it is a fairly well-defined looking piece. And, you know, it's working software that you can run now. The TCF has elements of a sort of broader scope and some elements of a specification in there, I think.
Yeah, we will be hearing from TCF next week. There wasn't room on the agenda this week to hear from them, but I see about half of you have looked at that proposal.
Yeah, we had a definite discussion about if we can, from Gardener's side, work together on specification and any kind of other things with TCF for sure. So yeah, I guess we'll be also from our side updating on the, let's say, you know, division and roles of those kind of things later then. Yeah.
So follow up on Nathan's comment, and I'm not clear from reading the proposal here whether Gardener supports a decentralized Oracle deployment, you know, similar to Indy and verifiable credential, where a network of nodes may work together to provide that service instead of just one server and a bunch of clients.
So are you meaning like in terms of like let's say off-chain Oracle verification that's then relayed to the smart contract itself, or like
right? So it would run instead of a centralized server, it would run as a decentralized network of peer nodes or client nodes that would go through some kind of consensus via smart contract to vote on a piece of data that to be part of the Oracle. So it just a thought. I just wonder if you guys have thought about that and how would that work?
Yeah, so for the decentralized Oracle part, yeah, that's like one way is to have like a smart contract where you have, let's say, multiple signatories, and then you know from the consensus that they give on the data input, you kind of say, let's say, if the majority agrees this is whatever the value is, that becomes the truth then. So that's one way, and there's another, like coming from the Ethereum community, there's a bunch of like nice proposals on having a decentralized off-chain Oracle where the consensus would basically be relayed through a kind of a ring signature off-chain, and then the results of that would be then kind of stored as the consensus is achieved off-chain to the to the smart contract. So that's like on a more advanced level, but like for us having a smart contract where there would be, let's say, multiple nodes accessing the data, relaying the information to the smart contract, and having a logic where based on whatever, you know, it can be weighted average or like weighted majority or just a pure majority, let's say, and then giving a decision on the validity of the data based on that. That's something that we can do, and it's not a very complex implementation, let's say, if there's a need to do that.
So this is about Hua. So for Oracle, I think the security is a very important point. So within this Gartner, the one major component is the smart contract. And do you have special consideration for the smart contract in terms of the security?
Were you on mute? No.
I think from our side, we don't have basically Christopher Drobic, who's the guy who actually wrote the initial implementation of Gardener and the smart contract, all the libraries there. So at this point, what we could do is let's say, I'll write this down and I can post this information, on the Gardener, let's say comment section or something. But I think it would be best if this question would be answered by him, if that's okay.
Yeah, that would be fine.
And considering the overlap with the TCF work, do you guys think it's acceptable to be combined with the TCF into one single project?
So I think we covered that a bit a little earlier. So there's probably a few options on the table, and we'll look to the TCF and Gardener proposers to continue that discussion before we meet again next week.
Okay.
Is it also worth looking? Linux Foundation just formed a new group project to deal and work in this space, right? I forget the name of it, but I don't know if some of the companies on the call are involved in that. I'm thinking they are.
The Confidential Computation Consortium, or something like that. That's the Intel one, right?
Confidential if you already know about it.
So I just don't know how that will play in with some of these current proposals. If we want to figure the relationship there out. I know Red Hat's contributing some code to it, I think. So.
This is
Yeah,
Brian.
I don't think we would want to gate any of our project proposals based on that other effort. That effort, I don't want to mischaracterize it because it's very early, but it's more infrastructure focused.
Yeah, and this is Brian. And there isn't anything blockchain specific yet in that project over there, but certainly there's a lot of familiar names, and so I feel like there'll be a lot of implicit coordination, anyways, between these kinds of things.
Okay, so I think we've got a couple questions that we'll be looking for some additional feedback on around next week. And so, Ben, I think you had one that, if you wouldn't mind dropping that into the comments thread in the Gardener proposal, that'll help us be sure to track that and make sure that we get you an answer. And we'll also be hearing from TCF next week, and hopefully we'll have a good resolution of that aspect of the questions. Any final questions for the proposers before we switch topics? Okay, well, thanks for joining our meeting and helping us discuss this. One thing I should have mentioned earlier on is there's some discussion that goes on during our verbal discussion here on the TSC channel of chat.hyperledger.org. It's sometimes a little difficult to try to monitor both things simultaneously, but after the fact, you might want to go check out that channel. I see one thing there, now that I mention it, from Hart, where Hart's asking about contributor diversity and some of the challenges that are faced by projects that only have a single company behind them. So you also want to think about contributor recruitment, but of course, being part of the Hyperledger family here is one of the things is that we all try to work on that, and there's some best practices that the community can offer. Okay, switching back to the agenda, our next thing is the Bezu proposal. Do we have anybody on from that proposal who can give us an overview?
Hi, Dan and everyone. This is Grace Hartley from the Pegasus team on the strategy and ops team here. Before I give a brief overview, we have quite a few people on our team that you might see in the participant list that I introduced. So first, from the Pegasus side, we have Dan Heyman, who's the program director, BJ McCulloch, who is on the strategy and operations team with me. We have two of our blockchain protocol engineers, Dan O'Farron and Mary Fisher on the line. And then from the consensus side, we have Jeremy Moore and Jim Jablowski. Giving a quick overview on the proposal here, we're proposing today. We are proposing to submit our Ethereum client Pantheon, or what will be called Hyperledger-based. Ethereum, or Pantheon, is our open source client developed under the SC2 license written in Java. We developed it from scratch, launched it last year at DevCon. Some of the enterprise features that we've launched as the PAR 1.0 release last February, and then in the releases over the last month, include permissioning, privacy, and our consensus algorithm IBSP2. Does anyone else from our team want to add anything to what I've said? Great. Then I guess we can open it up for discussion.
All right, well, thanks for joining us and giving us that intro. There's already a pretty extensive thread on the TSC mailing list that I'm sure a lot of us have tracked. And hopefully if others on the TSC have not tracked that thread, you can go check it out after our discussion here. I'm assuming though that there's still some questions that we can handle live here today. So now's a good time if any of you on the TSC would like to get some clarifications.
I just wanted to say that I was excited to see such in-depth discussion, and it shows how serious people are taking this proposal.
Yes, thanks, Grace and Dan for answering all the questions and being very responsive about this.
So I guess
I would also
go ahead, Nathan.
I would also say consensus has been excellent in collaboration across the decentralized identity space. We've had really good experiences working with them both at the W3C and at DIF and elsewhere where we've been working on standards for Aries and Indy. And I would be really excited to see their increased collaboration across the other Hyperledger projects through this proposal and the things that will come out of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good lead into one topic that I'd like to discuss a bit, which is in that vein of good collaboration. I think we've all had different experiences with projects within Hyperledger where what we see more recently, I think, is a good collaborative spirit across projects, where we started out with a lot of individualized projects that sort of operated only within their own sphere. And I think there's limitations for any project that would want to behave in that way in this day and age. And so I think it's really important to consider what the objectives are for the proposers as they're bringing this project in. It would be a very reasonable expectation for you to be thinking, all right, well, now we can operate this project as we have been operating it, really without regard to other things in Hyperledger, but now we've got maybe some Hyperledger infrastructure and governance around it, but otherwise it's going to be business as usual. I think that'd be a very reasonable expectation, but it's not one that I think would be in anybody's best interest. Whereas I think if you bring in the project in with an interest in more of a collaborative process with the other Hyperledger projects, I think that is going to be more conducive to everybody's success.
Yeah, that is, this is Jim Jagelski with Consensus. That is certainly our goal. Our goal is to grow the contributor list, grow collaboration, be an engaged participant, not only in this project, but in everything that Hyperledger is doing.
That's great to hear. I noticed one comment, I don't remember if it was in the wiki or on the thread, about the size of the contributor population from Consensus. That's sort of a catch-22. Any project that's that well resourced is going to be in a very good position for success. But then you also have a perception, at least, to work through that community is really led and exclusive to a single company.
That's a very valid point, and it's one that we take seriously. Obviously, a large part of what we'll be doing at the very beginning is, and continuing to do, is doing everything we can to disrupt and dislodge that perception. We realize that any kind of open source project, especially if it's one which is basically under a single company, isn't really a community-based project. And it's very, very important for us to have Besu be a true community project. And we consider our go-to statements at the beginning to help steward things along, but also to encourage outside and external contributions as much as possible. We realize that's the only really way of making sure that this is successful, not only for the individual project, but something which is, you know, part and parcel with being a Hyperledger project.
So thinking about, so I understand the desire there to broaden the scope of your contributor base and interoperate in general. But in terms of this actually happening and the inertia of groups, particularly a coherent group, large, well-resourced group like Pegasus, in terms of your incentives, can you think of some particular projects or features, or what would really drive, maybe from a business perspective, integration with an existing Hyperledger project? What would be a good place to start to find a strong incentive, not just feelings, for Pantheon and for Besu to integrate with?
Yeah. Hey, Silas. This is Dan Hammond. Thanks for the question. Also, thanks again for meeting last week. Great to see you. So we put a lot of thought into this on our side, and sort of we've divided things up in sort of what we could see happening short term, medium term, and long term. In the short term, we think sort of the low hanging fruit is around sort of some of the interop and cross-ledger communication happening at layer 2. So we're already actively working with the Web3J lab team, who are adding support for Fabric, and the Truffle team, who are doing the same. So that feels like it presents a lot of opportunities to sort of drive deeper collaboration, where you could essentially use the same calls or same environments to work across Ethereum and Fabric protocols and sort of derive a common tool set, a common experience for developers, and sort of start at that higher level. In the medium term, I think we're particularly interested in interoperability between chains. We'll have an increasing effort in that direction. And from everything we've heard in Hyperledger, that's also the case for a lot of the other projects. And so being able to work together, Chris, we had a chat about this, sort of being able to work together, understand what's feasible, understand what aligns with roadmaps, to sort of coordinate, because it takes two to tango on all these interoperability efforts. Obviously, Silas, we had a long conversation about different opportunities for Burrow and Besu to work together. Another one that sort of that fits in that medium-term bucket is looking towards Quilt and its implementation of the Interledger protocol, and so collaboration around there. The fact that it's JVM-based probably also will make that easier. So none of those are definitive, here's the business value per se, but we have really strong confidence that there's a number of things that will make both Besu and other projects in Hyperledger more robust by working together. and that we can lead some of our users and customers down that path.
So mentioning the the JVM, one of the big wins, I think, from the Burrow project was the interest in the other frameworks at Hyperledger to integrate with the EVM. If you know, since there already is EVM integration with Burrow for those, I don't know what the interest level would be for integrating a second EVM. But can you talk through some of what you see are advantages or obstacles in the language selection for Besu and the languages that are prominent in the other frameworks, and maybe also considerations in Transact for facilitating future work?
Sure. So I can start with this one, and then maybe Meredith or Dano, who are actual maintainers of the project, maybe you can speak to it as well. It's not self-evident to me that there's any advantage or obstacle per se in sort of using Besu as an EVM over Burrow. Burrow is a great EVM. If that's the goal, there's already that in place. What Besu brings is a suite of extra or alternative functions that can enable certain interaction either with the Ethereum community at large or just different approaches to blockchain protocols from what's already in Hyperledger. So I wouldn't see us as an alternative EVM or sort of the replacement to Burrow in that regard at all. That's not how we think of ourselves. In the conversations with Silas, there's lots of work that Burrow and Besu can do together to leverage the relative strengths that we all have. In terms of languages, I'll sort of hand that over to Dano and Meredith probably to speak to a little bit more. But my view is, there's common interfaces on how Ethereum clients connect. So those interfaces can be exposed and enable sort of collaboration across languages. Java obviously comes with its set of constraints for deeper integration, but there's a bunch of JVM-based projects that we're already working with and looking to work with. We see lots of advantages for being JVM-based.
This is Dan O'Farron. I'm one of the blockchain protocol engineers. One of the advantages I see with Java is it can integrate with just about anything. A lot of the enterprise frameworks of Java SDK, so if you want to take Besu and do some modifications so you can access your backend systems that have a Java API, it's going to be really easy. It can also integrate on a native level with any other language. So I don't view this as a barrier. It's not like using Java is going to prohibit you from integrating your Go code that integrates your backend systems. But when it comes to interop between processes and systems, typically it's done at a higher level than the raw process. You're going to use things like JSON RPC and other communication mechanisms, all of which Besu, Pantheon, or what would become Besu, currently support. So I don't really view the use of Java as a barrier. And as far as growing the community, to show a diverse set of languages that are available for the various Hyperledger projects, having some in Java, I think would bring in some collaborators that otherwise may not consider Hyperledger as a place to do their open source contributions.
On the point that Dan made secondarily about Transact, so Transact is a smart contract execution framework that has been spun out of Sawtooth and is now a top-level project. So what they have there currently is a WASM backend onto Sabre, which again is an extracted from Sawtooth. I can't remember from our conversation, is eWASM in scope for Pantheon Besu, or is that part of a separate Ethereum 2 project? If it was in scope, then in terms of there being an integration hook, there might be something around making some Transact work against an eWASM backend.
So I've been to some of the meetings where they've discussed integration with the Ethereum 1.x and eWASM. Currently, eWASM doesn't have a committed final version. It's not sure if it's going to make it in Ethereum 1.x, which is what the proposal for Hyperledger Besu has right now, or 2x, which Pegasus is committed to working on. We already have a beacon chain client that we're working on, Artemis. But if EWASM becomes a part of the Ethereum ecosystem, it's definitely going to be high on our target list. Whether we do a JVM-based implementation of it or whether we integrate natively with a native EWASM is a decision that has been made. And quite frankly, we're going to pick the one that works best in that regard. So I think that there's lots of opportunities still available there, but the EWASM is not solidly landed in a final form anywhere, unfortunately. It's great technology, though.
Hey, Dana, let me just pick up on that. While it doesn't directly relate, sorry, this is Jeremy Miller from Consensus. Well, it doesn't directly relate to the BASU proposal. We think having there is presumably value to the Hyperledger community to having a project that's sponsored by one of the major drivers of ETH2 to provide insight, direction, et cetera, around that framework. And, for those not familiar with ETH2 and the direction it's taking, there is enormous opportunities to do multiple execution environments in ETH2, which will allow for all sorts of novel forms of cross-chain integration that aren't possible today. So, a positive externality of the BASU proposal, I think, is ability to look at how ETH2 will shape product roadmaps and project roadmaps for that upcoming architecture.
Thank you, Jeremy. I do see that being a pretty beneficial thing. Ben, I don't know if you had a question or not. Otherwise, we will probably have to start winding up here. And if somebody could ping me on chat if they're here from the TWGC, that'll also help us know if we need to manage time for your update.
I have a question in the comments already, so hope folks can look at and can point me to the right place. But in general, I feel we are still very early on in the development of blockchain technology. Comparison to the web technology, I feel like today we are at the CGI in the early days of the web, like in the late 90s. Because for me, spend the last couple of years trying to develop an enterprise blockchain application on blockchain platform. It doesn't feel right. It hasn't feel right. And because of that, we are lacking of something. And my search is for those who are saying that they are supporting enterprise blockchain environment or call themselves as enterprise blockchain. What are the features that are the differentiators that you would say that you push the envelope here to help the enterprise developers making use of blockchain technologies easier or better? So that's what I'm hunting for. And to be full disclosure, I worked on Hyperledger Fabric. And there are certainly plenty of functions and features in Fabric, and still it's not there, right? Fabric is not there in my mind. So I'm looking at BASU as a new project, a newcomer in the enterprise space, and because of that, I'm expecting some differentiators, some very innovative differentiators. And I read the document, but I haven't been able to find any. So I might have missed something there. So that's part of my question and my comments. And if someone could jump in and shed some light on that, would be helpful.
Okay, thanks. So I guess we'll look to the question in the wiki for the response to that one, and we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left here.
Just briefly, I sent this email quite late, but Bin, be very interested to get your response to my last email on the BASU thread. So for me, a huge feature is integration with mainnet, and I've tried to give some examples and make an argument for that there. So perhaps you could take a look at that as well.
Great, thanks. We'll do.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. From our side, I think we took a first pass at kind of discussing the different features that we think are innovative. Maybe it's a different kind of take on permissioning and how we created privacy groups and our consensus algorithm, IBFT2, are just a few examples in our head that make us innovative. I'd be curious to get a little more feedback on exactly what you have in mind, as well as mainnet compatible.
Okay, thanks for that. So we're down to the last few minutes here, and we've got 2 other groups that are here for updates. So thanks to all of the Besu proposers for joining us on the call, and we'll continue this discussion on the wiki and the mail list, and then bring it up again on next Thursday. So moving on to Andy Gunderson and the grid update. Looks like we've got a little over 50% of TSC members having taken a look at that. Andy, in about a minute or so, do you have any things that you'd like to highlight, particularly issues that you want resolution or assistance from the TSC?
No issues currently. Before, in our previous update, we had talked about how we were trying to figure out how to essentially run sprints with the mix of different companies that we have working. And we did end up deciding on using Hyperledger Jira, which is working quite well for us right now. So that's great. And then I also just wanted to highlight the fact that we have added more to our governance, including a GS1 sub-team, which includes members from both Target and GS1.
All right, thanks, Andy. Questions from the community?
Just a comment. I think the Performance and Scale Working Group will probably work out to your GS1 sub-team, reach out to your GS1 sub-team at some point in the near future as we continue to make progress in defining metrics and make sure we're on the same page so we can help develop benchmark tools around that area.
Cool.
Anything else? I think it'd be great to see performance feedback at the use case level from a group like Grid. It's certainly something that the Performance and Scale Work Group has been looking for a while now. Okay, if other people have questions after the fact, you can always add them into the comments of the update in the wiki. And for those members who have not read through the report, please go ahead and get to that as soon as you can. Our last agenda topic is the Technical Working Group China update. I do not have the link for that in the agenda, so if somebody wants to drop that, oh, somebody has already dropped that in the chat. Thank you, Bawa.
Sure. Yep. Here's Jay. I'll give a real quick update. So overall, the working group is pretty active, and we have around 40 attendees per each bi-weekly meeting. And we have one issue, basically we're translating Fabric docs, and we have some problem with the pipeline and GitHub repos, and we reach out to the Fabric maintainer group, and I think the matter will be solved once Fabric has been moved to GitHub. We might leverage some of the infrastructure there. We're experimenting Transifex for translators and getting a better user experience overall. So that might set up an example for other projects, which if they want to translate docs to other languages. Another, not exactly issue, but we did host 6 meetups in the last quarter, also 1 online meetup. And I know there has been a long-standing issue in China that the presence of other projects other than Fabric are fairly low. And we did invite some developers from, I think, Britain to give an online meetup, and we had around 50 attendees online. So this kind of opens the door to other projects. So I just want to cascade this information. If you want to host a meetup, virtual meetup in China, we're happy to host a online webinar for you. So just reach out to TWGC channel or mailing list, and we will take care of it. And other than that, I think we're pretty good on track, and we'll keep hosting meetups in the following quarters. And we're trying to mentor some local developers to propose their projects and trying to connect them to existing project in Hyperledger, such as Cello. And yeah, any questions?
I like the idea of online meetups. That sounds interesting.
Sure. Just be aware there might still be there's still be a language barrier. So I would suggest to prepare slides with some more information so people can read afterwards. And we actually had folks from Britain, but they can speak very little Chinese, which kind of make webinar a bit more friendlier. But yeah, we can sort out details. Just reach out to me, and we can look into it.
Yep.
All right, Xie.
That's very nice.
I think that brings us to the end of our time together here. Thanks for everybody's participation, and we will look forward to talking again sometime next week.
Ciao.
Ciao, everyone.
Bye.